Are you, yeah, there
All
we go. Hold on, I gotta hit okay. So,
right,
um,
Rod, you can lead it.
oh, okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm just jumping in here, so bear with me. And Trupti really knows a lot more about the agenda items, but we've been over them, so I'll try to reiterate what we discussed. Welcome to the April meeting for the SUNY Land Use Committee. Um, I'm co-chair Rod Kaczynski and co-chairing with Trupti for the meeting, and I guess we can just jump in. We don't need to really review the
No,
recordings from last week. Do you
no,
want
we don't.
anybody want to review anything? Okay.
No, no,
Um,
no one's on
um,
here for public comment.
so
Different.
if anybody has, we'll skip to number two, and doesn't look like there's anybody unless Alyssa, you have some other items besides your normal ones to bring up. Yes. But if anybody has anything else they'd like to bring up, comments for the committee, we usually give a little short time here to introduce anything new. And seeing nobody else is on here, I figure we'll just jump right into Melissa because that'll stem some conversation.
All right, let me share my screen here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing and
All right. So we just have a few things here. We have the near Northwest Area Plan rezoning, which did pass. We're super excited about that. As a reminder, this was to implement some recommendations from the near Northwest Area Plan that did pass in January of last year. The summary of what we did basically is to update the zoning for properties that were zoned in the former Chapter 59 old code zoning to the Denver zoning code. And then we applied the active centers and corridors, so DO8, to select areas throughout the near Northwest area to kind of bring activation in our long-term vision as things redevelop to make sure that they have that ground floor active use. So that often looks like a commercial space on the ground floor of a, often three-story building. So we're very excited that that passed, and we are looking forward to doing some more implementation. The West 38th Avenue corridor study, this already happened. They had their final meeting on April 2nd, and they did show the final recommendations. If you click on that link, you can learn more about those. We have the Vibrant Denver bond. We're very excited about this. We are still gathering input from residents, so you have until the 17th, so another 7 days here to share any shovel-ready projects. So basically, this will be a bond that the mayor is trying to put together of projects that we would be able to complete within 6 years. So they need to be completed within 6 years. The bond estimate is going to be approximately $800 million, and that'll be split throughout the city. So we are just looking for any projects that you think would benefit the neighborhood that are city projects. So this needs to be city-owned property, city-owned land. We can't touch highways, so nothing with CDOT, nothing private. So we had Children's Museum show up to the Go Bond meeting and look for money. No, they're a private organization. So, if you have some thoughts on how we can improve Northwest Denver, please do share them using that link.
so is are the street right of ways Denver or is that Dottie?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
Dottie is Denver, but the second that you get to like federal, then
Oh
that's the
yeah, but
state,
no, but
right?
with no, yeah, right. But within, okay, cool. All right, I got some ideas.
Yeah, lots of
800
transportation
million?
options.
800
$800
million?
million,
All
but
right.
that's throughout the whole city.
No, yeah, no,
And
I
we
know.
want a soccer stadium.
I've got a few
So,
ideas. All right. Okay, let me put some head scratching together.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely by the 17th. And Rod, I finally caught up with Rod. He was in Antarctica for a couple of months. And, we just connected a couple of days ago, kind of as a, hey, are you back? Are you still gonna keep doing this? Will I see
Yeah.
you on Thursday? Right. But as we were talking about it, we were talking about, there are probably some options for 44th that could actually make sense that align with a lot of our city goals, and a pedestrian piece of it, as well. So I
well,
think we'll
just keep in
probably,
mind, Trupti, that if it's things that would be under a bid, a JID, a local maintenance district, that wouldn't necessarily be as considerable. in the
Right.
sense that if the city thinks that that is a private property owner's responsibility or should be, then it's maybe not going to rise to the top as much as some of these other projects throughout the city. So make sure that you keep that in mind as
So
you
Rod,
consider this.
if you wanna just kind of throw it out there, what we were kind of talking about of like, again, whether it happens this time around or we get the conversation started, I think it's still worth the while. But maybe a good question to just run by Melissa about, turning that into, removing a parking lane, extending the curb, and then so like would extending the curb now be private property if you were to remove a parking lane? So
Well,
parking on one side, extend the curb, create that pedestrian right of way with, pedestrian amenities, the benches, the gathering, the shade trees, any of that.
That's all going to be, you know, some kind of a maintenance district. So whether it's
Ah,
a improvement district, a maintenance district, because you would really ultimately have long-term maintenance and responsibility for those improvements. And you would want to be able to have something in place that would, even if the city funded the initial upfront
right,
improvements,
right.
what would care for these things long term?
That makes
Um,
sense.
and so, you know, I'm not sure that you're going to be ready for this
Right,
bond, but I appreciate the enthusiasm and I see where you're going with that.
right,
It could be
yeah, because
something that you throw out now for
right.
discussion, but
Correct.
ultimately you're going to need a study, no different than we did on 38th Avenue,
Of
right? We
course.
had to have a corridor study
Well,
to
there you
be
go.
able to
Corridor
envision some,
study.
right? So ultimately, that's what you're looking for, I believe, for 44th, something that you can say, we've studied this, we'd like to remove a lane of traffic, or, you know, however you envision
Yeah.
that going.
Well, so
Um,
how about place identifiers? Um, like I've been working, and this has been for years. I've been mucking around with like, like over in Harkness Heights and Berkeley, they've got identifying columns on the major corridors where they connect to the different neighborhoods on their major ones.
those
Um,
things are a nightmare.
are they?
No.
Okay.
And
Never
so
mind then.
they often they have ownership issues.
Right.
And most of the times they're not the cities. So like I
Okay.
went through this in country club.
Okay.
Not yeah, it becomes
Because
kind
I
of
was thinking
a
at
mess.
Zuni and Pecos when people come in, from Chaffee, and then you've got the ones on the same streets crossing over 38th. Nobody really knows that they're transitioning from, you know, Highlands to Sunnyside, and it's like, and Highlands has them over there, and you're going into their neighborhood. So I was
That's
like,
fair. It's an
yeah,
interesting thought. Put it in. I mean, it doesn't hurt. So, look, we've got a ton of people that are going through these things. Those poor individuals. They have 4,500 projects, last I heard, that they are sorting through, and the number's
wow.
growing. So make it their problem. Submit everything,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
and
I like
Well,
that.
let
and
them
that
decide
one's
what is.
succinct. There's only five that I had in mind because it's Zuni and Pecos north and south, so that's four little locations, and that was at the corner of 44th, which is our spine going down. Um, like something just there at the corner by Federal, like it says, "Hey, welcome to Sunnyside,"
Hey,
kind
so
of thing.
so Rod, this is interesting. If you've noticed, there are a couple of places. Maybe there's one on 44th. Maybe there's one on Clay that is a rectangular says Sunnyside. You've seen a couple of them in the neighborhood, have you?
No.
Okay, so
What?
that's interesting because I want to say this Sunny as an org, shit, maybe 10, oh, excuse me, 12 years ago or something, had worked with a designer to create these placards, got a few of them up, the rest are not up. And I think this is something we can work with Dottie to use existing structures, to put these up. So there are, I'll take a picture and send it, Melissa, I'll send it to you and
I've
Rod.
never even
I'll
seen
take a
them.
picture.
That's
Yeah, I
The
was
thing
like,
is,
I lived in Sunnyside then. I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
yeah,
walked
okay.
all.
So
Where do
there,
you think they are? Where
no,
are they?
no.
Because I'm going to go for a
I
walk.
learned when an old board member went through boxes of his stuff and said, "Here, Trupti, see if you go through all this stuff." I go through all this stuff and realize that this placard that I've seen was someone Sonny paid to design, and I believe some of these placards already exist in our storage. So we have the placards. We need Dottie to give us permission or have some of these polls. My point is, this could be easy and not a lot of money. Because I think at other places they've either put it on existing, but yeah, it would be the concrete, the pole, and nailing this placard to like each of the major streets going north, south, or east, west coming into our neighborhood. I don't know how many of these things we have, but let's say we have 8. That's 8 major points where we could have these that identify. It doesn't say welcome, it just says Sunnyside. But they were something created for this purpose. They just never got around to finishing this project. So if that's kind of what you
Wow.
had in mind,
So that's like a scavenger hunt now to go find the ones that were
there's
installed.
only like 2
I
or
was saying,
3 that
where were they installed out of curiosity?
I want to say there's, if you're coming down 44th from Federal, so you're going east
Yeah.
on 44th from Federal, there's one on the right-hand side. I want to say there's one on Zuni. If you go from 38th north on Zuni, there's one. There might be one other, but there's only a few, and I haven't figured out if that's all of them. My point is, I had to connect the dots by going through old paperwork that this was a Sunny paid for project. So it's a leftover thing. I actually do have a conversation to start with Dottie about this, but Rod, if that's kind of what you were thinking about, like,
Yeah,
hey, nobody
you
knows.
see all different types, and some are
Yeah.
historic looking, others are
Yeah,
just
this is not
bollards.
historic. It's not interesting that way. There's no welcome to, but it does say Sunnyside, and I think
No, that's all I was
right
thinking.
there.
Something that says Sunnyside neighborhood on it,
Yeah, yeah, it
it
says
goes along
Sunnyside.
with
Well,
identifying a
I-
sense of
I'll
place.
I'll send you a photo of this, but I don't know whether this even requires bond level money. This may be
Yeah, I'll
something we
grab my
could,
cordless drill and some some stainless steel security screws, and we'll be off to the races.
it's probably, it could be as guerrilla as that. But if we can see where Dottie would allow us to use existing signage or would allow us to implement this, we can go figure out whether we can find
Yeah,
money or do a fundraiser or, like I said, find some grants, you
I'll
know?
grab my little foldy wagon and throw them in there, and off I'll
Okay,
go.
all right. So I
Yeah.
think we have that. So I would say you don't even have to worry about adding that one to
Okay.
the bond piece of it. I think it's much cheaper than that. All right, I'll share that stuff with you guys, but I do think that that's something we should do. And I do think
Yeah.
that there is
Yeah, I'd be
probably
up for
something in
that.
MPI about the fact that, we don't have a we don't have a brand. We don't, there isn't anything that says,
Well, yeah, it's about
There's
finding little
no
incremental things
markers.
that we can do to
Yeah.
create a sense of
correct.
place.
So
Yeah,
thanks for that reminder, and we'll
cool.
put this back on the table to actually get it done or move on it.
Yeah. Well, okay, sorry to
All right.
interrupt you, Melissa, and going
No, I look
through.
forward to seeing those pictures. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So, as you mentioned, we have unlocking housing choices. So, I sent out the email to you guys. We are just looking for people to apply.
I did.
Um, Excellent. Glad to hear it. So, they're looking for some people to do focus groups. They're looking for some committee members. And, the councilwoman is just interested in getting Northwest Denver residents to participate. She would love to see a large number of people at least try,
Right.
because Northwest Denver is predominantly single unit and 2 unit zoning.
Yep.
And this could have a lot of change in our neighborhood based on this, which isn't
Yep.
necessarily bad, but she wants to make sure that our residents do have representation on there.
Now, Melissa, do you know what the deadline for that is? And Rod, I don't know from filling out the form.
No,
I don't remember seeing a
I don't think
deadline.
so.
I
I think I
don't
filled it
remember
out
seeing
too.
the deadline.
Okay. Does anybody
Don't remember. I'd
know?
have to look.
Okay. Yeah.
Justin, do you know? No?
I don't. I'd have to look too, and I might be able to
Yeah.
find it though.
Okay. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I didn't, I reached out to Andrew Webb, Justin, because I thought it was you. And then you said, no, it's Andrew Webb who's leading this. And
Oh,
I
poor
haven't
Andrew.
heard back from him. But there are people asking. We sent it to our board. We sent it to our land use committee, also asking them to share it out to other people who may be interested. And we're also going to be sharing this with our block captains. So that's another 40 people, right? And then we'll put, but it was just more of like I didn't have enough information because people will be like, well, what does that mean? What does Sunny want us to do? What do I have to do? So I didn't have enough of those answers. Hi, we've got someone else joining. Libby. Hi, Libby, are you with Justin?
I sure am. Yes.
Okay, great.
Hello.
But thank you for joining. Okay, so Melissa, you'll be able to find us the deadline for that. So maybe we can, use that as well to make sure it gets out further.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find anything on it. I don't have anything immediately, but I'm sure I can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no deadline on the web page either. I
Yeah.
just looked at that, so they don't have a deadline listed.
That does not always mean there isn't one, though.
Right.
That's right.
It's
It's
odd.
true.
It's odd that there isn't one because
Well, this is just starting, right? Like this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
just starting to get going. So this is at its infancy, but we can certainly find that information and get it to
And
you.
my question to Andrew in my email was, have you started going out to RNOs or, start doing presenting to RNOs? Because a lot of times they'll do that for anybody who, says, hey, come to our X, Y, and Z. And to be honest with you, if he can come before the 29th or come on the 29th at our annual meeting, that would be another place for him to maybe address, 100 people about this and, get some interest in people to sign up.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, just as a reminder, people, our federal BRT is somewhat on a pause. They are just regrouping due to all the uncertainty at the federal level. They are not going to be able to, move forward with the project as originally planned. So they are regrouping. They still are committed to the project, and they will work to find out how they can complete that. It may look like a scaled down version. It may have some reduced scope, but they do want to move forward with BRT on federal. They're just figuring that out right now.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I know. Sheridan Corridor Study did not require federal funding, so therefore that one's still on. And so they're just looking for people to share their experiences on, how they've interacted on Sheridan, if they felt unsafe. As a reminder, this is not transportation related, so we're not reimagining transportation on Sheridan. This is just trying to improve how people cross Sheridan, how, the sidewalks and pedestrian experiences. So please participate in that. That is all I've got there. Go ahead.
Yeah, is for that Sheridan one, is there, like I saw the web page, are there any surveys and things like this? Are they already collecting input or they're not there yet?
Oh, they've been collecting input.
Okay, because I don't think we've
but
shared
this
this.
is,
Okay.
I've shared it in the past.
No,
But this
I don't
is
think
just,
we've put it, I'm not sure we've got it on our newsletter or, in on our socials or somewhere to put this. So I'll work to make sure that we get this information out. Because it is one of the ones that pops up because of the high injury aspect over there and deaths that we have. So a lot of people do get passionate about this particular corridor and its safety, especially, cyclers. So I want to make sure we get it out as much as we can get it out so people can provide their input on that.
fantastic. Okay, and then lastly, I'm just entering a link in the chat. So CPD is looking for some feedback. They want to know about people's experiences and opinions on their land use rules. So if you have some opinions on their land use and development, the survey is a little technical, slightly wonky for some people that may not be as familiar. It's about 13 questions long, but if you have experience, any kind of experience where you've tried to add on to your house, get a permit, anything to do with the zoning code or building or fire code, the green code, any of these things, they'd love some opinion or to get your opinion on some things. So if you could share that survey and take that survey, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
And then I'll also send something out. I'm in the middle of doing that. I'll probably have something out either end of this week or early next week.
Is that going to be an email, Melissa, when you say?
Yeah, I'm going to send it through our newsletter. So it'll go out to all of our people that have subscribed to our newsletter.
Okay, all right.
So things like a fire suppression system they denied because they said they hadn't done one like that in Denver before, so we can't do it.
Rod, this survey is for you.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say
Good
that's
news.
very specific hypothetical there.
Well, it was like I got denied for like 3 weeks. I went back and forth with the fire review guy, and he's like, "Well, we can't do it." And finally emailed me, and he said, "We can't do it because we've never done it before here." And I'm like, "They do them in Boulder all the time, and they've been doing them in Europe for like 30 years." Like, and so finally, I sent him like a stack of literature like this, like if you had printed out the PDFs I sent him, and he next thing I saw was fires approved. It's like sweet, but
I
it
want
took
to
me
read
like
this.
3 weeks.
Approved. No, yeah, please do take that survey, Rod. Like
Okay.
really, you'll have a lot to say, I'm sure, in that. But yeah, they're just looking some input on their processes. They're looking to improve that. They've hired a consultant, and they'll be kind of looking at that process or their processes and their rules and how to improve over the next year here. And they'll have a report hopefully in December of this year. So
Cool.
that is all I have.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, let's see. So that finishes out part three, and then we'll move on to the next one, and that's actually you guys, Justin and Libby. If you guys are okay starting a little bit early.
Yeah, we are.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, thanks to Melissa for helping us spread the word about our background report and our public review draft and our town halls and everything. So thank you so much. And Troopty, thanks for reaching out via our comment form to like start a discussion with your neighborhood about this. This is great.
I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess before I start, would it be helpful for me to walk through like a short presentation, like info item type presentation, or do you have direct questions that we should just launch into?
No, I think we
How-
should start with that presentation because, like I was saying, that there might be more people watching this video later who have no, idea this is even happening possibly. So it'd
Sure.
be great if you can just kind of give us the background, tell us what you guys have been up to, what you're proposing, and then deadlines and how people can reach out to you. And then we'll probably have some questions as well.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay. You guys see that okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. So again, so my name is Justin Montgomery. I'm a senior city planner with community planning and development. I'm joined tonight with by Libby Kaiser, who's a principal city planner and is on this project as well. So this project is called Modernizing Parking Requirements, and it's sponsored by council members Parity, Hines, Watson, and Alvidrez. And it's led by Community Planning and Development, Department of Transportation Infrastructure, DOTI, and the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resilience, CASR. So we're teaming up for this one. And our presentation tonight, just a little bit about the background of the project. We'll step through some highlights of the proposed text amendment because we do have the public draft available now. We'll talk about some Peer City research that we did and some findings of that. Talk about our expected project schedule and then the engagement opportunities. So if you don't know already, zoning right now contains parking requirements, vehicular parking requirements for all types of developments. And these requirements are extensive, complicated. They vary by land use and district that you're in. There are a lot of alternative reductions and exemptions and different standards that you can apply for through the process. There's no parking required currently for single unit dwellings and ADUs, and there's no parking required downtown. The parking requirements first came to former Chapter 59 in 1956. And they were changed periodically. There's a number of amendments that went through with former Chapter 59. And then there was kind of an overhaul when the Denver zoning code was established in 2010. And that's when we saw more of a gradient, like a scale between different neighborhood contexts for different uses. So for example, the closer you get kind of to the urban core, the less parking requirements are typically called for in those areas. And we recently removed minimum parking ratios for neighborhoods adjacent to the downtown area, including the Golden Triangle and Arapahoe Square and the River Mile. And then we just recently also did it with Lodo with the last bundle. But however, despite this, parking trends show that applicants will still try to meet local parking demand and provide parking even in areas where it's not required today. And we do have a few examples of that. The next few slides. So this is 1901 Lawrence Street, where they were downtown. No parking was required, yet they provided 633 parking spaces. Another one in a downtown area, Arapahoe Square. This one required 217 parking spaces, yet zero were required, yet they provided 217 parking spaces. And then one that's in a mixed use zone district that's within half mile of 2 light rail stations, where the spaces required was 428, yet they provided 691. Our background report that we have on our website that we can talk about in a little later has more examples of this as well. So there's just a few examples for this presentation. Additionally, in addition to the complicated code we have and that people are providing parking kind of however they want anyway, we have a state law to comply with. And that state law was just recently passed, and Denver needs to comply with it by the end of June. And so our project is on track to be at City Council on June 30th. So we're on track to comply with this deadline here. So the state law, I want to be explicit on what that is about. So it's requiring that cities don't enforce minimum parking requirements for certain developments within what they call applicable transit service areas. And I have a map. The types of developments that the law requires this for is multifamily residential and adaptive reuse projects with 50% residential. And here is the map of the applicable transit service areas. And it covers most of the city. Areas not controlled by the state law are largely single unit zoning districts or open space zone districts. I have a link that I can also share in our chat that goes to the state website that you can have, there's a more interactive map they have available on the state website, and more information on the state law if that's of interest to you.
Yes, I still want to be, yes, thanks. When you're talking about the map and I'm looking at this, so let's say specifically for Sunnyside, right? Right. Is it the section that's not pinked out that this applies to? Is that how I should be reading this map?
So it applies to all the pinked out areas is what so Sunnyside is largely covered by this state law.
Okay. And this is multifamily, and multifamily is defined, is it 8+ or is it 4+?
It's a good question. I think it's I'd have to go back and look at the state law exactly to see if they have how many units plus it applies to. It's a good question.
Okay. Because I think yeah, I mean, we have the housing choices is one where we're kind of looking at things going, from single unit to tries and fours.
Right.
And so I want to make sure if there's an overlap there that folks should be thinking about. Okay, so the pink is everywhere this is the state law is going to apply to.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so you'll get back to me on the unit count.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get back to you on that.
Well, and I will just note too that we're going above and beyond the state law, as Justin will get into more, so that the number of units, kind of that threshold, is maybe not as applicable to our proposal.
Yep. And yep, I'm aware of that too. And yes, I'm looking forward to all of this.
Cool.
Cool. So as Libby indicated, our project then, we're proposing to remove minimum vehicle parking requirements for all land uses across the city. So we're doing this in an effort to promote the development of more housing. and provide flexibility for the development to include the number of parking spaces deemed necessary based on market conditions. It's more flexible approach in that way. And we're going to streamline zoning regulations for efficiency and clarity through our project. Now, so then when we remove minimum parking requirements in the code, we're able to do a lot of other things to help streamline the code and clean things up. Like we are able to remove vehicle parking exemptions, which exceptions, I should say, which include exemptions, alternative parking ratios, reductions, and shared parking standards. So what you'll see in the public review draft is a lot of red marking scratching out of a lot of unneeded text once minimum parking requirements go away. These will simplify the use tables in all the neighborhood contexts, which currently have a bunch of parking standards and bicycle parking standards in those. They will no longer be in those areas. It'll just be the land uses in those tables. And then we're going to move the bicycle parking requirements into like one consolidated location in the code, Article 10, which deals with parking. So it's isolated there, not in multiple places where it is today. And we're going to maintain all the maximum parking ratios that exist in the code for surface parking near TOD. What else about this? I had another thought about this. Oh, at staff, even just CPD staff estimates nearly like it's a little over 650 hours of a year that this will save staff not having to deal with parking regulations and enforcing the parking requirements. Our proposed text amendment is also aligned with our adopted plans and policies and other programs and policies of the city. So this includes the comprehensive master plan, Blueprint Denver. It includes DOTI plans, including Denver Moves Everyone, and their curbside action plan. If you're not familiar with those are also things that we go into a little more detail in our background report as well, and feel that our project is supporting these initiatives. So the TDM is something important to note. So if you're not familiar with that, that's the Transportation Demand Management. And that is a plan that DOTI is an ordinance that DOTI holds, and they are looking to update their TDM rules kind of based upon what we are up to here. There's also different transit plans and bus rapid transit BRT corridors that this supports, bike and scooter lanes, the sidewalk and pedestrian safety improvements, the like. So really minimum parking requirements kind of goes against a lot of the policies and plans we have in place regarding multimodal transportation options, walkability, requiring everyone to put parking on their site actually is harmful for the realization of these other goals that we have. And so we're not the first jurisdiction to propose eliminating minimum parking requirements. This map is from the Parking Reform Network that you can find online, and it goes worldwide, really. There's other countries doing this, but there's currently 85 jurisdictions within the U.S. that have removed their parking requirements. And we have studied these. We've studied in detail 4 cities that we highlight in our background in Peer Cities report. So we study Austin, Texas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Portland, Oregon, and Longmont, Colorado. Longmont because they are the only city in Colorado that's currently on the list. We do know that there's folks in the city of Boulder that are also underway on a project to propose the same thing to eliminate minimum off-street requirements as well. And overall, the city planners our team has interviewed consider their projects to be very successful. So housing projects were able to pencil and get constructed without the parking mandate. So they saw more housing, and parking is still provided. That's one of the big things we want to make sure we are expressing. Like, we're not removing parking with this, and we're not like restricting parking further. We are simply just not going to require a set amount of parking with every project that comes through. And these other places still have parking. They still have parking. So our expected project schedule, we are just getting into our community engagement, and it's really great to be here to be able to engage with you guys, and hopefully this spurs more questions. So please reach out to us. We do have a public review draft available right now online for you to check out. We hope to be at planning board on May 7th is our plan to be at a public hearing for planning board, with a LUDI date then on May 13th. Which, if all goes well, we are then projected for it's June 30th public hearing at City Council, with which implementation to follow.
So can you tell me what, maybe it's covered, but if it's not, what will your community engagement and public review draft look like? So what's your plan? I mean, obviously we invited you guys here, so there it is. Okay.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you. So
Okay.
we are, so as folks reach out to me through the website comment form like you did, I'll engage with them. And you invited us here, and thank you. So we came. We had a town hall was it just last week, or about at Ratio Beer Works in District 7. And we had a pretty good turnout there. We're doing a virtual town hall that's, citywide access next week on the 15th. You just have to register ahead of time on our webpage. And then we also plan to be at the Academy in the community for District 6 as well. It's like an open house style event, which we'll have a table to engage. We've launched our project webpage. At the same time, we went to the Budget and Policy Committee meeting, and there was a lot of press about this project, in different news outlets. And we also got a really big wave of comments from our webpage at that time. And we still continue to get them, but we still are trying to spread the word to all RNOs out there, all council districts, to make sure they're aware of our project and can know how to access us, because we want the questions. So yeah, and now we're here to answer your questions as well.
Rod, I'll let you go first if you have any.
Rod, you're muted.
Rod, you're muted.
Can you send me this presentation?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
can you
absolutely.
send us a link to the presentation?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, like drop it in there.
And yeah, and you could just email it to me. And Libby, I know you sent kind of the state's definition of multifamily, right? And they didn't really, is that what you sent? Or was that the city in the chat?
It's the law, but it doesn't define multifamily, is what she's
Okay,
saying.
okay.
And I looked as well, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Well-
Rod, if you have a question.
Oh, well, that's what I was kind of doing. So I'm sorry, distracted. Sorry. I was Googling it, and I found a link that actually defines any improved real property used or intended to be as a residence that contains more than one dwelling unit. So it may be as many as just more
Two.
than one
Two
defined
is the answer.
multifamily. So a duplex could be defined as multifamily housing. So that would be a pretty considerable crossover.
Exactly, exactly. And what's interesting about that to me is people who develop the 500 units and the people who flip homes and develop duplexes or triplexes or quads, they're different people with different constraints, you know? So I can see where, folks who provide parking even when they don't have to, they're under different pressures of why they do that. But I would be more concerned about the smaller developer who can fit more units in because the housing choices may allow them. And then at the same time, they don't have to do parking. They probably wouldn't. So that is something, I guess I have no idea how to evaluate, how that's going to happen. But What are, what are some of the pushback you're getting, or what data are you providing neighborhoods for them to kind of gauge, well, what will this mean? Even if you understand what you're doing, how will my life and my environment change? What do we expect to happen? And
Right.
with this.
Those are good questions. And like, based upon like our like talking to the peer cities and like the planners and the outcomes they're seeing since they've done this like in past, they're seeing that parking is still provided. It's just at a lower threshold. Like where there isn't on-street parking available, the developer like the applicants could provide more parking on site in those situations. But so like it's like they're taking the local market into consideration. We also do know that like certain lenders require parking still. So like that's another reason why we could be seeing like different ratios than the city is stand like having for some developments because lenders still require parking for projects. Some of the concerns we've heard about, I think, stem from some misunderstanding about what we're up to. Like people think we're trying to take cars away or take their parking away, and that's not what this is about. This is about providing flexibility and just simply not having it enforced by the zoning rules. We still have a lot of standards regarding parking that will stay in the zoning code. Like once parking is provided on the site, we have a lot of requirements still for how that's designed, where it's located, etc. That will not go away with our project.
Okay, but just a high level one statement. Once we remove these parkings minimums, anything that gets built, parking will not be required unless the developer feels that the market will demand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Or their lender.
Or their lender.
Right. Or a lender requires it.
Okay. And then
so like day to day, it's like one of those things. We're not gonna wake up tomorrow and there's not gonna
okay.
be anywhere to park, right? It's like it's gonna be like a slow, gradual thing that we will see coming with development being proposed. And on top of this, Dottie again is going to be updating their transportation demand management program to hopefully reduce the demand for vehicle ownership as well.
Well, and everything I've ever read that went in cities around the world that have done this, the developers, it's driven more by the market demand, and they know what they need to provide for what products they're putting out there. It doesn't disappear completely anywhere, really.
Right.
Agreed.
And that's evident by downtown. Downtown has zero parking requirements. We've never had parking requirements in downtown. And there's a lot of parking available downtown, despite what some might say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, technology helps there too, because then it's easier to find empty spots and everything now too. So
absolutely. There's apps for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess the other question I have is why did Denver decide to apply it everywhere? And so why did Denver decide to go beyond state regulation, and especially in a crunch time situation of meeting deadlines? And why not meet the deadlines and consider neighborhood by neighborhood situation with parking, or consider the parking piece after the housing piece, or consider that together? Because I think, they may impact one another, and it'd be easier for me to imagine, well, how much upzoning are we about to do? And we kind of have a max threshold for how many parking could be lost, because we may not upzone on every street, every block, depending on where they land. So what was the reason for going up and beyond? And why not do the second piece of this slower?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Libby will probably help supplement my answer here. She was a part of the research in the beginning phases of the project. These bullet points are the reasons why we're going above and beyond, like these ones right here. If we were to simply just follow state mandates, we would not be promoting development of more housing everywhere. We wouldn't be providing the flexibility. So it's like the opposite. And our code would still be very complicated, maybe even more complicated with regards to parking, because it's not set up according to how the state has defined these different land uses and the applicable transit area. So we would have to figure out a way to have that geography looped into our code somehow. So it would just add more complexity, I believe, to our regulations than anything else. Aside from that, even before the state law, like we were thinking of this anyway. This is best practice in the industry. And so this is something that we've wanted to do. This is just a good reason to do it now.
And then in regards to kind of how this relates to unlocking housing choices, all of the peer cities that we talked to, removing the parking requirements was kind of a key step to take care of before they allowed for more gentle density in neighborhoods. Because as you already noted, right now, maybe on a small lot, you could only put a duplex on it with the required parking spaces. And now they're seeing more like fourplexes or sixplexes when they don't provide parking. And that's probably only going to happen if there is a sufficient supply of on-street parking spaces available.
Which I think in Sunnyside there are, right? Because we don't have businesses on every corner and, okay. It,
Yeah, except everybody holds on to their 2 spots in front of their 50-foot lot like it's their own property.
right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, people come out and say, you can't park in front of my house. And I'm like, yes, I can.
have you guys,
Yeah.
do you have any data behind how how many, parking spots you would expect removed, either neighborhood by neighborhood or area by area, larger, all of Northwest Denver in the next 20 years? I mean, have you guys done any analysis? Because I think for me, the biggest challenge would be, again, if somebody asked me, well, what does this mean? I'm not sure, how I can explain it. And there are definitely lots of people who are just for this. And, I understand, and I could be one of them. But then there are people who are just opposed to change. So, in general, how are you alleviating those people's concerns? That's throughout. And then, especially, well, okay, let's start with that. Yeah. How have you been able to, address those concerns from people about, well, I don't know what this means and I don't know what that's going to look like. I understand what you're trying to do.
Right. And that's a kind of a hard question to answer because we just don't know how sites would redevelop across the city, honestly. What we do know is, again, like what we've learned from peer cities is that parking doesn't disappear, right? I think that would be the best, like the most thing. And it's like, we're not taking anybody's parking space away from them. If you have a driveway and you park in your driveway, that can stay your parking space, like we're not going to make you turn it into anything else. So I think that's one of the large things in our parking report that we did, our background in Pure Cities report that we have online. We do get into like current parking trends and parking in Denver as a part of like what's going on now and get a little more detail about our regulations and how they're a little complicated and things like that. So I think that's part of the answer.
Okay.
We have heard from some it's been breweries mainly, right, Justin, that really would get rid of some of their parking spaces in order to transition that into an outdoor patio. And that then is, they have to kind of weigh the trade-offs of that on potentially limiting customers that are going to drive to their business or creating more opportunities to kind of create some vibrancy where otherwise you would just have cars parked. Now they have people hanging out and supporting their business. So you might see some of that, but again, what we've heard from the people that we've talked to is yeah, the existing parking doesn't go away. It's just that people provide fewer parking spaces with new development. So it
And
just kind of expands the housing options that are available out there than reducing what exists.
And how many comments from overall comments have you guys received, period, on this entire, like, what do you think your engagement has been?
Yeah, good question. So through the web forum comment, I have like 196 comments. And then when we went to planning board for our info item on March 19th, I think I got another probably like 30 through just like that avenue to support comments. So we're like a little over 200 right now with comments and yeah. And we're gonna summarize all of those in like our upcoming staff reports and everything when we go through the hearing process.
Right. No, I mean, those numbers would tell me no one has a clue what is happening. I mean, I mean, I know we all struggle with that. I just, not a lot of comments in general. And assuming a lot of times people comment only when they have something negative or when they're against something much more than they're for something. So I'm kind of surprised that that is low. So yeah, and that's why I ask. I mean, that's an entire city. That's not a neighborhood, but an entire city. That seems not like a lot of engagement. And I understand you're
Sure.
tied on the state side, but that's not a lot of engagement for, like a big change.
Yeah, it's a big change. We would love to hear from more people for sure. We are getting the word out. I think it's also a part of what's in the news right now and what's going on in the world. I don't know if parking's the number one concern, but maybe it is for some people. But we do, I hear you. We want those numbers to go up in this month for sure.
Well, it's more about how can the city think there's a mandate, at least from people, or a level of support for, what maybe, what is the trend? With numbers that low. I mean, should have thousands and thousands with, whatever number of people who live in Denver with something that is a, change across the board. So I don't know if that just means everybody's for it or no one knows enough about it. That's kind of, it's one or the other. And I have a hard time believing that everybody's just for it. Again, I'm not against it. I just feel like a lot of people don't know
Sure.
or
Yeah,
aren't
I think
aware.
for a good comparison project, like the citywide ADUs project we just recently did, we had about like 700 total comments on that one. So I do expect us to get a lot more comments in this next month as we are approaching the communities.
Okay. And how long has what was the starting point? Like, how long has this project been going on? I understand the end point was 6:30.
Yeah, December 9th was like when we first like went public at the budget and policy committee meeting.
Okay. Pretty quick, obviously.
Yeah,
Okay, so the website has a place for people to reach out. Obviously, the planning board is a public hearing, the city council is a public hearing. Those are areas that people can reach out. And
absolutely.
obviously they can go directly to you guys for comments to those meetings and their elected representatives, the three city council folks that represent each one of us. That would be the best place. And then, of course, come to the meeting, but an online virtual meeting with, a lot of people, I mean, they might see the presentation and be able to take some questions, but not really a place for, a one situation, but there is a D6 meeting for that.
Right. Yep,
Okay.
there's that one. And then I would reach out to us via our submit a question and comment form, just like you did
Yep.
originally. That's a really good way for us to track everything, or just individually is fine too. I'm happy to have one-off discussions with folks during the day if it works for them, or like when we can get together if there's other questions. We do want to answer people's questions that they have.
Rod, what's your
So
thought? I'm sorry, go ahead, Justin.
oh yeah, so I mean, just to orient our webpage here, we do have some FAQs. We have the public review draft available to comment on, and we have some engagement, and then our background report
Okay.
able to download that with a lot of sources, good sources to look at.
No, I appreciate that. And I got to be honest, I was aware of it and I knew why, but I haven't dwelled into that. But
Sure.
again, I personally am not against this. I'm more concerned about people who don't know that are going to be surprised. So my role here is to make sure I get this information out as easily and broadly as possible so folks can come to you guys. So Rod, what I
Thank
was
you.
going to ask you was, and you guys, tell me, I'm thinking of a good way to summarize some of this stuff, and I think your presentation is one of them. But I think the headline is it applies to every place. Peer cities show that parking doesn't eliminate it completely. You're not going to wake up tomorrow with changes, but when redevelopment occurs, that's when this could happen. So I'm just thinking of a way to kind of give people kind of the bullet point without being misled, or make it very clear, right? That your parking's not going away. Like that's a headline.
Right. Like,
I'm just trying
well,
to figure out,
Well,
I,
okay.
Rod or
oh, I was
Melissa.
just going to say, I'm not the person to ask because I'm pretty biased. I mean, I'm totally for this 100%. Like, I would get rid of cars tomorrow if I could.
Right,
Like having like, I get where Troopy's from because most of the time, it's not people that are necessarily against it. They're just misinformed about what it actually means, and they leap to conclusions about what it
right.
means.
So
And
that's
having a simple 1 point bullet point of
right,
peer cities that have had this already been done and did this 20 years ago only saw parking reduced by less than X percent, like something like that, or that type of thing, because that just shuts them off when they say, "Oh, my parking is going to go away." Well, no, I
right,
mean, cities all people behave similarly, in most places, and you're likely to expect this type of reduction. But I don't know what that percentage is. Maybe in your
right.
report, does it break it down that way?
That's kind of
Uh,
what I'm trying to figure out is how do I just share some headlines so people, and of course, they really need to dive into this stuff and ask you guys questions. I'm just trying to think of how I can summarize in a way that is, clear, direct, not biased in one way or the other. Because like I said, I'm not concerned about this. I'm more concerned about people not knowing than people objecting.
so yeah, it looks like it dropped 40% there with some new buildings.
Just, yeah, right.
Mhm.
So I think that's that other piece. Like if we look at how much Sunnyside has already redeveloped, right? Those buildings, all the new builds, which there is a substantial amount, they're not getting torn down tomorrow or in the next, 30 years. It's really looking at, how much is still out there that could get redeveloped and how this new the housing choices we can do a, worst case scenario, everything gets to, 3 and 4, the average per plot going from 1.5 or something like that to 3, and none of them have parking based on X percentage of homes that may get redeveloped over the next 25 years,
Right.
right?
Well,
I'm a
Trupy,
numbers person, so I kind of
your
think about that way.
hypothetical that you posed is actually intriguing to me because like the big developers that come in and put in like these multifamily, like mega multifamily size things, like we're seeing at the down near Jason and Inca and stuff like that. They already know how many spaces they have to put in because they're not going to sell them if it doesn't come with a certain
Or
amount.
right,
And they've got bean counters that know exactly like, hey, it might
right.
be less than what the mandatory minimums are now, but it's not going to be zero. It's what you're talking about, the smaller mom and pop developer
Mhm.
that once we can take a SU district, C1 lot and put a fourplex on it, all of a sudden somehow, you're going to see much more of an impact on those immediate,
Mhm.
houses around that one particular property. So overall, in the scale of the neighborhood, it might not be something that pops up on some sort of percentage radar, but for those immediate neighbors, it's going to be quite impactful to all of a sudden have a house with no parking that's a fourplex and could have, in theory, God only knows how many adults living there with cars. You could see, you know, 8 cars or more that all
Hey,
of a sudden don't have any parking
I see
on lot.
Melissa, I see your hand up. I want to just add one thing. The other thing that makes an impact is whether you on your street, you guys all have garages or you don't have garages, right? So like the impact in the city, in the neighborhood could be minimal, but impact to certain folks or
Right.
on certain streets, it could seem like a lot. But again, I don't know how to answer that question, and I don't even know how to evaluate that. And that's what I think people may struggle with to support this. Melissa.
No, I was just going to remind you, like, I think Justin had a good map that really I think is something that you should be sharing out in the sense that um, the vast majority of Sunnyside, this is coming for regardless. This is not a choice. This is not, should we, shouldn't we? It's been mandated by the state. The vast majority of Sunnyside will be covered. So it's not really a contact, your council person and tell them vote no.
Okay.
This is,
It's
kind
done.
of
It's done
it's more or
for.
less done, right? Like the people in Sloan's Lake are pretty much the biggest swath that we have that would be to potentially exempt,
Correct.
right?
Okay.
Well,
But everywhere else is pretty much covered.
and
That's a
to
good
be
point.
honest, it's only short-term pain because people adapt and they move and things
Right.
shift and change, and within a few months, no one will remember that it was any differently once it's all in. That's just how people are. And in this case, I think changing habits for the better, because people will walk more and instead of driving.
Yeah, good point, Melissa. There isn't even much of a choice of not doing for most of Sunnyside. So it's much more like, sorry, if you want to complain, go to your state officials, not your city officials.
Well,
Okay.
and looking at
Absolutely.
that map, is it really any of Sunnyside? It's not.
I
I
see
mean,
a
like
little
that
something
little
that's a
sliver, but is
sliver.
that south of 38th or is it right? I don't even know.
Oh, no, it's in ours. It's north of
Okay, it's
38.
it's in
What
the
is it,
middle
around
of
a
this. It's in
park?
the middle of Zuni. It's in the
Yeah,
yeah.
Is
what
It's like
it? No. That's
This little
what is that? Tejon? No. What's
Tejon,
are
there?
those?
Pecos. That's Pecos.
Pecos. It's the center of
Pecos.
the street, Troopy. So
right.
Okay.
yeah,
It's
Yeah,
where
no.
all the radii didn't quite overlap,
they
Okay,
right?
got it,
overlap
got it,
and
got it.
cover the
Okay.
center of Pecos. So Gaetano's there is fine. Um, oh wait, no, that's on
That's not
Tejon.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Okay.
Bienvenidos can have a lot of parking.
the food bank. Yes,
Yeah.
but they need it. That's fine.
Yeah, they need
I
it.
I think
We don't
one of the
have any
best
anyway.
comments, one of my favorite public comments we've received so far is just simply, "I want a walkable city, not a parking lot city."
Mhm.
Um, and like that should be our tagline, but it's like it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I
you're preaching to the
agree.
choir on my side, so I should probably keep my mouth shut.
I was gonna say, we need so much more to make it that, and that, this hardly will get us there. But you're right, it's a step towards trying to get there. But,
I
Rod and
just I
I
just
want to see a
spent I
lot
just
more stuff changes for making it comfortable to be, walking everywhere, having the driving,
I just spent 2 weeks in Sydney and in Auckland, New Zealand. So like, and I almost cried coming home, like because those cities are so walkable.
Yeah, we talked about that and saying, what can we
Yeah.
do? Can we do some thought experiments and, things to engage people to think differently? And, so anyway, so again, like we were saying,
Yeah,
I
like
don't think we're the
Sydney,
folks,
it can be done because Sydney's like what 7 million people in the metropolitan area, and it's just massive, and every inch of it is completely walkable. It's insane.
Mhm.
and is in the background is where this is what the state legislation said, right? That's in there, right? So
Yeah, that's in there as
this
well.
document is what people need to look at. And Rod, I think you and I, after looking at this, we should be prepared to maybe answer questions
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
our
That's
annual
why
meeting.
I posted the link to your guys' thing there in the
Okay.
chat as well, in case somebody I
Mhm.
don't Troopy, are the chats available afterwards as
I
part of
believe they are.
yeah, so anyway, I put it there so people can
Okay.
go to that as
Yeah.
well, but
No, I
I'll
meant like for our annual meeting,
oh yeah.
you know, um,
No, I'm gonna have to read through all of it and get
be able to answer a question. But I think
yeah.
Melissa, was like, wait, hold on. It's not like the city had that much,
Yeah.
there's not much leeway here for Sunnyside from the
Well,
side regardless.
I think our I think our value here, Trupti, as a neighborhood organization, is to alleviate some of the anxiety based
Correct.
on misinformation, because
Correct.
that's really where you see most of the problems. And once you can have like a rational conversation with somebody, either they realize
Right.
it's not going to have that big of an impact,
Correct.
or it'll be better for them, or they don't have much choice anyway.
Right.
So
That was where I was going with, like, how do we kind of share this out? Like, here's the meeting, see for yourself. Here's all the documents, see for yourself. Here are like the headlines of, the conversation we had, and this is what we understand. So for me, it's all about making sure we communicate information out and really not tell them what to do or think about it, but rather, just be factual and
well, make
them.
sure they have the resources and the access to the information so that they're
Correct.
not
Correct. So
calling
thank you.
Amanda and screaming over something that's incorrect.
Right.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Or calling Melissa, actually.
And has that, right. And Melissa, have you been hearing from constituents that are aware of this and are very
No,
concerned?
They won't start calling her until it's
they
already
will
implemented.
eventually,
Yeah,
but
they won't.
yeah.
It won't be till after it's implemented. Then they'll start calling.
And I thought like Highlands United kind of had some concerns about this. I don't know. And Melissa, you would know. I was hearing that from someone who lives here and also owns a home there, who kind of, Lexi,
Yeah.
but I have they had any valid objections? I mean, because their neighborhood looks different than ours, right? I appreciate our neighborhood because there's lots of empty spaces for additional cars on the street if and when the time comes. For them, they kind of went through putting some parking meters up, for residents because of all of the businesses and what Thursday, Friday, Saturday night looks like over there. So, have you heard? Because I thought Lexi was indicating that they had some concerns, but I haven't had a chance to connect with her.
So they did have some concerns. I think they continue to have some concerns on how this could impact the people that need accessible parking and how that will impact the availability and the number of accessible parking spaces. And
Right.
if this could be considered a blow to accessibility because those people often don't have the same mobility
Ah,
um, as able-bodied people. So
okay.
they
Mhm.
certainly did express some concerns on
That makes
that.
sense.
So
That
this is.
said, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say this isn't happening just in Denver. Of course, it's statewide here, but there's cities all over the world that are doing this and thinking about doing it. That's actually a question for Justin or Libby. Is the ADA like gotten into this and
Yeah, that's a
given
good point.
feedback, or has that organization even like put any insight or input from their perspective into it?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but like what we know about ADA and how we are like approaching it is it's based upon the number of spaces provided on the site. Then a certain percentage needs to
Right.
be ADA spaces, right? Only like it's Austin, Texas is a unique example that we talk about where they actually retained an ADA provision to require a certain number of ADA
Hmm.
spaces regardless. And so that's what that jurisdiction chose to do. That's not a common approach. Most jurisdictions do what we are proposing and leave it at the federal standard based upon what is proposed and provided on the site.
And so when a developer decides to put in X number of spaces, the ADA percentage requirements still kick in at that point.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also and I'm assuming this type of a one-off is still accessible. For instance, when you do have someone, no parking, I'm sorry, no garage, no parking, they need to have a ramp in front of their house, right? That they may have to build, but then they may want a parking spot in the front of their house with the sign, just like, I do see them. Is that something that's still available to, as in one-off, two individuals, unique situations as needed?
So
Yeah, we're not
yes. Oh, go ahead.
restricting any of that. Yeah, no, Missla, you have a better answer, I'm sure.
No, go ahead. It's so I can just say that yes, those
Yeah,
things are still available. People can apply for
Mhm.
those.
right,
They are not reserved to that individual. They end up being an accessible space.
right,
And so if there's
Mhm.
another person with accessibility needs,
right.
they can use that space. It is, again, a public street, as much as people do believe it is their private spaces. So as long as people are aware of that, and I think we'll see more concerns of that
Correct.
as we go forward. But it is certainly an option for people to apply for.
Right. No, and then that's the whole point. I mean, when we do talk about ADA, besides just overall ADA, because not everybody is wheelchair bound, that, isn't, 100%. But I'm just really thinking about there are folks, and then they have to make some modification to their environment, for them to,
Well,
to
and the truth is,
well.
there's really no ADA regulations on single family and duplex anyway. But
No. I'm saying there's always the
Yeah.
one-off variance situation where they have to, ask the city for putting a spot with the signs that say, hey, somebody on the street
Right.
requires this, and the city can do it. But that's still available. But okay, good point. No ADA aspects are really considered here. Austin was the only one. So that's interesting to look up how they handle that.
Justin, do you have anything on that specifically on the ADA? Has CPD done anything that could be shared?
In our background report, we just kind of go over the existing standards, and then we talk about what Austin's approach was in our background report too. That's kind of the extent of that right now.
Okay.
Okay. But we're not taking that.
Minneapolis also took kind of a unique approach in that I think they require like one on-street like loading space. So
Yeah.
somebody could, pull up and drop someone off.
That's a good point.
So
Loading.
that's also an option that
And
doesn't impact the building footprint.
right. But why did we not look at that at all? So I understand Highlands, I mean, a good consideration. And again, I think we're in a very different situation than Highlands with our just existing, availability of spaces in front of our, on the streets. But for, have you guys looked at where it's already really dense with businesses and mixed use, where you would, consider doing this? Or why did we not consider looking at that, saying in certain places we should have the, unloading, offloading spot reserved just for that purpose?
That is all in Dottie's wheelhouse and in
Okay.
existing programs. So
Okay.
like I would just direct you to the curbside area management plan program.
Got it.
Like before this project, I actually didn't even know all of this stuff that Dottie was up to. And it's extensive, and that's covered in those programs.
Got it. We have a program. It's in a different department, and yes, you didn't
And
have to consider
but
it
this,
for here.
this sort of strikes me as a solution looking for a problem, like it meaning.
No, I get it.
Like right now, like if we got to the point where there was an area that was so distanced where no parking was provided, which would be well beyond our lifetimes, the city could easily accommodate that by saying we're just going to turn a couple of on-street spots into
Right.
ADA spots, and they could make that happen overnight. I mean,
A process exists. That's
yeah,
what I'm
but
saying. The process exists.
if somebody identified an area that had no accessible parking within a certain radius, I'm
Right.
guessing it's that quarter-mile walking area or whatever, they could easily take an on-street spot and make it ADA compliant.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, no, that
There'd be an
is
easy
true.
fix. There'd be an easy fix.
Yeah, exactly. There is a fix and there is a solution to that question about that. And, it lies in a different department, doesn't really need to be addressed in this plan.
You can
Right.
actually see what they're doing for Highland, because Highland received a curbside access plan. So I
Okay,
put that as the
yes.
second link. You can
Yep.
read theirs.
This is the one, is this unique to the ADA, or is this about the whole issue of
No, this is,
permit parking?
but these curbside area management plans, right? They kind of address the various users of
Yep.
this public space,
Got it.
and try and anticipate those needs.
Yep. I was familiar
although,
with that program. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I don't think I have any more questions.
Thank you for this, guys. I really appreciate
Yes.
you guys working on this in general and headed this direction, but also coming and reaching out and communicating with us as well.
Yep, and we'll get all of this information out at, to the extent that we can. And we have our annual meeting coming up. We'll make sure we have something, whether it's a flyer or QR code, where folks can, go and learn more and know, where to find the answers, and provide comments. So we'll do our
That's
part
great.
to get the information out.
Thank
We
you.
we do have a handout that we had made for our like in-person events. I can send it to
Okay.
you.
That'll
So
be
yeah,
great.
absolutely.
We would just put that on all the tables or something, a few on each table. So
That's
actually it'd
awesome.
be great if you give me the printout. So that's one less thing that I would have to go, pay for, frankly. But if you
Yeah.
can, we'll probably have 10, 12 tables and we'll put a few on each and, people can take a picture of them or grab them. So you let me know, Justin, we can connect. Our meeting's on the
Yeah,
29th. So anytime before that, if I can get those from you, then that'll be perfect.
absolutely. We'll definitely make that happen.
Wonderful.
I'll meet you at the Bolt Brewing. We can
Oh,
meet
that's
there.
Yeah.
perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Look,
Or
I'll be
we've
in touch.
Yeah, we've also got a
Perfect.
board.
She's there. She's there.
We've also got a board that we're putting together for our event on the 16th, so we could probably even pass that off and let you recycle it.
A board.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And you know what? We
Yeah.
do have the 38th corridor and, kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's called Safe Streets. We have a individual, I don't know if you guys know Elizabeth Morales, but we got a couple people from the city there. We can certainly just put that board up, and it probably, they probably can't answer questions, but they'll know how to reach you guys. That'd be
That's
great.
perfect. That's
All
what we
right,
want.
Justin, we'll be in touch. I can meet you wherever and we can exchange. The board will be fine.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everyone.
so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Troop, do you want to, we can just call it at the end
Yeah.
of the meeting too.
Yeah, I think we call it in the meeting. We do have a lot of information to share between the stuff, Melissa has shared.
Yeah.
Melissa, is that email? When is the newsletter going out? This is not on 5/1. Is this?
This is not a newsletter, but they will go out as a newsletter does. It'll go out, like I said, late this week, early next. We're in the
Okay.
middle of writing it.
Okay, perfect. I'll look out for that because I'll swipe all the, links and information right out of there and send it out on our
Oh,
platform.
so this will just be for that CPD survey, just to be clear. This is
Oh,
only for the CPD
okay.
survey.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
So we're just looking for that. But otherwise, you can get most of these links
Correct.
through,
Okay. I wasn't sure.
yeah, my
All
land
right.
use slides.
No worries. And the CPD survey is already available, right? So I mean, I can
Correct.
just link. Okay. I'm not sending out anything until probably next week sometime anyway, just because our newsletter just went out last week. So in it, all of this stuff will go, everything, including, link to this recording. So awesome. Well, thank you very much, Melissa.
Hey,
Welcome back,
Melissa,
Rod. Thanks, guys.
thanks. Hey, one quick question for you, Melissa. Like
Yeah.
when I signed up for that committee for the housing thing, like that didn't have a deadline, but do you know when they're going to be starting contacting people that have signed up that if they are welcome on it or
I think
not?
Justin's going to give us some information, right? He was going to tell us if there is a deadline.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to reach out to Andrew Webb on that. I think we're really at the very beginning, and so we'll reach out to Andrew Webb and see if we can get some information on timing on that. And it may be that they don't know yet because this was just released.
Okay.
Yeah, so it may be soon, yeah. Well, that's great. But you know what? The other question I didn't have is that I have that maybe or you can find out is how many people from each area or district are they hoping to get for advisory and focus group? Those are the two, right? That are going to be a little bit more commitment rather than just getting an email update. Do you have any idea? Because I think we have a few people like already starting to think about joining, and some, depending on the commitment, some may like one versus the other. So just trying to get a little bit more of that information, but also the number of people. Is it one? Is it four?
Yeah, and some of these things are flexible. Sometimes there isn't a hard number. I will tell you
Okay.
that. Sometimes it's like, let's see how many we get. We have a fuzzy number, but if there are some people that we can't live without and we can't meet that number, we'll extend it, right? So a lot of things in the city don't have real hard numbers.
Right.
They have, targets, and then they have reality.
Right. Well, I know. I'm just like, hey, if we get a few people who are interested from Sunnyside, I just want to see one of those people make it. That's what I'm interested in. But of course, they're going to be looking at it from a bigger perspective, because it impacts, all of Northwest Denver. Does, would reaching out to Amanda make any difference in this situation? Okay, that's what I thought, and I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
well, that's why we're being so aggressive in trying to get people to
Okay,
participate,
okay.
is because she's council president. We won't sit on this committee.
Ah,
And so we have, and yet it could really impact District 1. And so we really have a vested interest in trying to get
okay.
residents to participate so that they can be selected and put on that committee.
All right. So, but does any other council, obviously she's not going to be, because she's president, should we be reaching out to Parody and Gonzalez to be like, hey, here's a couple of people from our area. We definitely want them in there because they're representing the RNO and as well. So I'm just trying to figure out how to secure a spot for someone who is going to be committed, work with the RNO to kind of share this out and participate in these meetings, right? Not just show up or not show up, So I'm more interested in making sure we get someone who wants to be there and is going to, work with the RNO to, collect information, feedback, and share. So, besides Andrew.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to function.
Okay.
I will say it never hurts to reach out to your at-large.
There you go.
I mean, although I'd say you could reach out to us, I know for certain this will not do you any good.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
So, I mean, although I love talking with you, I don't think it's any worth your time on that one. So reach out to Andrew, reach out to your at-larges.
Okay, perfect.
Share your interest, share how this will impact the community, and you want to make sure that you have a voice at the table, right?
Absolutely.
You want to have a representative there.
Perfect.
So,
yep, thank you. Thanks. And that's all I was looking for, is whether, reaching out to anybody is better rather than not, and I understand council president's position 100%. And I appreciate it, actually,
Well, it's hard. I mean, we have the benefits and burden of being council president. We get to be on the really big things, but some of these smaller things we don't get to insert ourselves on like we used to. So
awesome. Yep. Well, thank you. Keep up the good work. We're so happy you guys are, advocating for us all the time.
Oh, well, thanks for doing these meetings, and reach out to me if you have additional questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Rod. Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back. Yeah. Well, partly. It was a lot of fun. It was a blast.
But
I was ready to be back. I was ready to get home.
There's a couple of us trying to figure out how to, get him to do a slideshow, coffee, sharing his experience, and
I'll go to that.
Well, have you
cool project?
Did I send you guys? I'm going to email. Did I send you my Substack link? I'm going to send you my Substack link. I posted something every single day for the whole 63 days that I was gone. So,
and his son was there.
And I had Nico with me too. So I'll send you, and you can scroll through and you can start, like, there's a little bit about the project before I left, and then it starts with day one. And for there, it's like 7 straight weeks of work out on the ice. Like almost every single day. There's a couple Sundays where we didn't work, but it's still
trying to
cool.
create an event for the community,
pictures.
right? Just this is a fun thing. This isn't like, hey, things are gonna hit the fan. You need to fill out a survey. This is just gonna be like, have coffee and donuts.
Yeah, well,
learn something about your neighbor who did something cool.
Yeah, Jamie's already trying to get me to like give a presentation at her kid's school.
Exactly.
So I'm like working on that. Like
Yep.
I'm like I've been invited to a conference next October where they want to give a speech about like architecture in crazy places, so I'm gonna let this thing run as long as the legs will.
All
Good
right.
for you.
Very cool. Well, we're all looking forward to it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
And, take care.